I know, I do it too.
Hello, wonderful. This is Sarah K. Ramsey, and I'm here with Misa Hopkins, and we are going to talk about your feminine energy, your feminine consciousness, how to step into that beautiful piece of you that is woman. Hey, Misa, how are you?
I am doing great. I'm so excited to be with you because we have such great conversations.
We do have such great conversations, and we kind of had a topic picked out. And then as we met again together, it's like, what do you want to talk about today? What do you want to talk about today? So tell us why you wanted to talk about this. Why is this an important piece of your life and your
Oh,
work?
it's just really up for me these days, this concept of feminine consciousness and how we as women are really discovering what the heck that means
Yeah.
and why it makes a difference. Because it's been, as we all know, it's been repressed for thousands of years, certainly centuries. And so we're really in this discovery phase of what is our feminine consciousness and what is its power and why does it make a difference? And I'm finding that the women I'm working with, Sarah, are really deep into this right now.
Mm.
It does make a difference, and they're seeing how it makes a difference. And then my husband and I, as you know, because you're in it, in our Amazing Relationships Summit,
Mhm.
we're really going in deep exploration about what it takes to have really outstanding relationships, whether that's with a partner or with the divine or, with your family, your community, the people in your family you don't get at all with
Uh-huh.
them, totally different, maybe political views. How do we be
Right.
in those environments with each other? And what we're discovering in my circles and classes, and what we're finding throughout the summit, is a lot of it is rooted in a deeper understanding of feminine consciousness and bringing that into our relationships.
I love it. So, what is feminine consciousness to you? If someone is just like, what does that even mean? How would you give them the 101 version explanation of that?
I'm going to go right into what I know energetically, because
Okay.
my understanding is like in my bones. It comes from a spiritual experience I had, a mystical awakening. So when I think about it, it's not a political concept. It's not a social concept, though it can apply there. It's it's the root. Just let me share the journey and then that will make more sense. So I was in Egypt, if you can imagine, Sarah, with about 300 psychics and healers on a trip up the
Okay.
Nile. And
If you go next time, I'm expecting an invite. Like, I just told your husband I was going to come visit you guys when the world opened back up. But yeah, next time you head to Egypt with the spiritual healers, I'm in.
oh
Let's do
my
it.
God, it was amazing. And because there was such a concentration of energy, and Egypt
Right.
itself in these ancient temples still holds tremendous energy. If you have any psychokinesis in you, if you have any psychometry in you, you're going to feel it. You're going to see it, sense it. It's profound. And people are having different Kundalini experiences and awakening experiences all over the place. And one of mine, just
Mm-hmm.
one of mine was that I went into absolute yin consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
I was darkness, space. It was that for 24 hours. So it was complete awareness of all that is. I call it now the womb of creation.
Mm.
Absolute womb of creation. If we think about being in a mother's womb, it's dark, it's a little watery, it's hopefully, if she's balanced, it's peaceful, it's
Mm.
loving, just like a mother's love, absolutely unconditional, loving every aspect of who and what you are, whether you're having a difficult time or a wonderful time inside that womb, you are loved. And that was my experience. It's slow, it's dark, it's exactly as the Chinese described it thousands of years ago. It is this beautiful womb for creation and everything, past, present, future. The potential of life is there and loved. So when I think of feminine consciousness, when I root into that, it's what is here in this moment that wishes to be held? What is it that wants to be loved unconditionally as it is in the most pure form of a mother's love, of a feminine love, of the love that would occur in the womb of creation. And I breathe into that space once again.
You started out kind of going before you even went into, and I want to point that out in case our listeners didn't pick it up, because I was like, oh, I know exactly what she's doing, and breathing into that space, right?
That's
And
right.
that seems so healing, particularly for those who may have had a difficult mother.
That's right. That's exactly right. And many women will come to me because they've had trauma that isn't healing. And when we get still enough, because of the ancient practices that have been given to me, I have practices that are over 1,000 years old that have been passed on to me that are women's ways of healing. And we go into that womb space and we go into the space of being just coming out of the womb, or you're 2 years old. And what I find pretty consistently, Sarah, is that when someone has had any kind of trauma, trauma can be mom was thinking about an abortion when she was carrying me. Mom was smoking cigarettes. Dad wasn't sure he wanted me to even come into the world. He was scared to death about how he was going to provide for me. There, mom had tried to abort me. I mean, there are all kinds of things that happen that we may not have been told. And they start from the moment we're in the womb. And then through about that, up to about 4 years old, our memories are really thin. But what I've discovered is that when women go into a safe yin container, a feminine container, and allow their consciousness to help them heal, this isn't about reliving the trauma. This is about becoming aware of what you needed that wasn't fulfilled. I needed to be
Can you
wanted.
can you say that one more time? Because I want everyone to hear the difference. This is not about reliving the trauma.
No,
This is
it
about
is
yeah,
understanding what you needed
yeah.
in that
Mm-hmm.
moment that you didn't receive. I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to feel wanted.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to be able to be in the exploration. That wanted, it often comes up in the womb. After birth, I wanted to feel received fully, completely. And I found out my mom was going through postpartum depression. I didn't get to feel that you are the most precious being in the world. Or 0 to 4, that sense of, I just wanted to touch and explore everything. And I was constantly being told, no, 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 or I was in a playpen, or whatever happened, you didn't get what you needed. And in feminine consciousness, in the way that I know it, you reconstruct it, you recreate it in the womb of creation. You give yourself what you never got to experience. And you recreate, and you're born in that recreation. And what's significant about this is often because we don't have those memories, the trauma is persisting. And in my experience, Sarah, the earlier the trauma occurred, the more persistent and the more insidious it is. You can't see it, but you keep playing it out. So we actually go to the root where it started. And when we go into that womb, it may take you into a past life. It may take you into your mother's womb. It may take you into some moment where that need wasn't fulfilled in your life. And we fill it through our emotional bodies, which is how women naturally awaken. It's through our emotional bodies. Our emotional body becomes the doorway to our freedom and our awakening.
And what usually changes for women when you have gone through that doorway of an awakening and connected with your emotion, connected with your freedom? What what do you see change in a woman after that?
Ooh, that's a great question. And several times I hear this, and one woman's coming to mind. So I'll share a little bit of her story.
Sure.
She was doing this deep work for several months with me, just age by age by age. And she had had difficulty with her family of origin. She had never felt loved by them. It was just always this polite exchange. And she started realizing how unwanted she had felt and how dismissed she had felt. And she began to bring this into a space where it was healing. I get a letter from her, Sarah. She's gone to spend a holiday with her family. And she said, Misa, I finally felt their love.
Fascinating. Okay, so once she was able to give herself that love, because to be fair, not, I mean, I don't want to get people too hopeful into, oh, I can force people to change through my energy. That's not what we're saying here, right?
Mm-hmm.
And some people do mature, maybe there was a mother who had you too young, or not too young, but she was not emotionally ready to be available for you. But if you can kind of heal that yourself, maybe she's a different woman at 55 or 65 or 75.
Exactly. And what
Yeah.
happened was this beautiful woman was able to feel her mother's love and her parents' love in the way they delivered it. Because what happens when we're
Very
young is
important.
we want to experience it in a certain way. And you may have a parent that doesn't deliver it that way. They have a different way of expressing their love. So when you're filled from the inside, now you're able to go with them and be with them. And you're able to see, oh, God, mom had some traumas I never really kind of got.
Mm.
And oh, this is how she's showing love. She's in the kitchen, she's baking, she's cooking. Oh, that's her way. Oh, this is dad's way. He's kidding, he's teasing. And I didn't get that before. This is my father loving me. And they drink it in. So now you're so full, you're overflowing in that love. And you didn't ask them to do anything. They still have their bad habits. They didn't change. They still made mistakes when you were young. That didn't change. But your capacity to be a fully conscious woman is changing. And that gift, your capacity is now one in which you're able to receive them. You are that feminine consciousness now that holds yourself and holds them in their suchness.
That's fascinating, and obviously it reflects on how I want to receive love and how the other people in my life give love. My father brings me back to a story in his life. My grandmother has passed on now, but she was very poor. Her husband died of what later ended up being like a government. He worked around government toxins, so he died of lung cancer. Left her without a high school education, 3 kids, one who had diabetes. And then my father, so she was not affectionate in any way. My dad, I don't even think she like really hugged my father. She was a very affectionate grandmother, right? She could cycle through. It was not in survival mode of I have to keep people alive in a very scary situation. And my dad now, he says, and quite honestly, my grandmother did a really horrible job protecting my father from other people in his life that, she just didn't. Looking back, it's like she did not do a good job as a not, just keeping him safe. Like she just did not do a great job of that. But she wore holes in her shoes. And he always had Chuck Taylors. He always talks about Chuck Taylors. And he had like the nice basketball shoes at the time. And she had holes in her shoes. And that was the best she could do. And he remembers that, and he says, that's the way she loved me. She wore holes in her shoes, and I had the Chuck Taylor shoes.
Yeah, he was able to find how she was loving him, coming out of the hardships she had experienced. And this is one of the gifts of feminine consciousness as well. And your father had it, that ability to receive
Right.
as she was, right? To receive her love as she was. When I say feminine consciousness, I don't mean women and I don't mean men, though I do believe we as women are evolving it right now. I'm talking about a much deeper level of consciousness. That capacity to recognize generations before that they're coming out of traumas of their own, trying to be the best they can be. And they are not going to meet all of your needs. They're not. And that doesn't make them bad. That certainly there are people so traumatized they really are bad parents. That does happen. But in most cases, what's happening is they're coming out of their own trauma. And they're giving
And just for my listeners, I'm going to give a little subset there. And that doesn't, their bad childhood does not give them an excuse to be bad to you or your children. Just a little caveat, just because of the nature of the listeners. I know you agree with that, but I just am trying to think, me 10 years ago or something, how would I have heard what you just said? So this is not a conversation about you getting better at putting up with other people's bad behavior.
Oh, no.
Right?
No, not at all. Not at all.
And I know it's just the nature of who listens to this, right? And filtering through how they hear things. This is a conversation even at a healthy place. They are not going to meet all your needs. Like, that is an unfair relationship expectation from a healthy place. That our movies and our dream, our songs, it's like, I can't live if living is without you. You are my everything. What is it Jerry Maguire said? You complete me. And it's like, no, I complete me. Mm-hmm. And I bring a whole self into the relationships I have with my husband and, my friends and my family and my children. And I am whole on my own. That's really what you're saying, right?
Absolutely. We're talking about when the relationship is healthy, when your connections are healthy, right? That we so often place unrealistic expectations on a state of perfection that doesn't even exist. Uh-huh. And absolutely, there's a place in our emancipation, in our spiritual sovereignty, where you realize you are the one who connects with the divine. You fulfill yourself, your own being. Now the kinds of partnerships that you attract are very, very different. And I can speak to that from experience.
I know. I love that you raised your hand, because I say, when I'm saying something hard, I'll say, I'm raising my hand here, not pointing my finger, because I came from the school of hard knocks, right?
Oh, yeah. We do. And we attract relationships that are reflections of our woundedness and our wholeness, both, right? And we fall in love with the wholeness within another person, and we try to ignore the woundedness because that's what we're doing within ourselves. We're ignoring our own woundedness. So when you start attending to those wounds with love, and that's why I say emotions are the doorway for women to their awakening and their consciousness, because they will overwhelm you until you pay attention to them. And when you begin to hold them with love and respect, that of course I'm feeling abandoned right now. And that's coming from a legitimate place I may or may not remember. But abandonment in and of itself is worthy of my love and attention, not to be I shouldn't feel abandoned. Look at this great life I have. Those are the kinds of things we do, right?
I love everything you just said. And I want everyone right now who's listening on the podcast to hit rewind and hear all that again, hear at 30 seconds. Because I loved absolutely everything you said just then.
It's so dead on. It's so vital to get that it's a legitimate feeling. And that fear that comes with it is legitimate. It comes from somewhere. That acronym, fear is false evidence appearing real. I don't buy it.
I don't buy that either. Thank you. And I hear women, they say things like, I need to work on my triggers. And it's like, maybe that's a signal that you're around someone or something dangerous.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
When we touch a hot stove, it's hot. And I see so many people trying to say, well, I need to not let it burn me as I place my hand on a hot stove. And it's like, your feelings are data.
That's right. That's right. In fact, you're going to love this, Sarah. Jeffrey and I talk about that in our summit, specifically because we were going through some conflict. That helped get us excited about doing the summit. It was because we said we're the microcosm of the macrocosm, and we've been together 17 years. So probably twice we've gone through the tumultuous, are we stand together or not? That's also fairly normal. And had to decide how we were going to work through this. Now, when you're attracting a healthy partner, you're working through it together. You're not the only one doing all the work.
My husband and I had a conversation today. I had the book release, I had this stuff, and I said, we need to have an energy shift, because right now, as your business partners, right? We have been taking care of business right?
Oh,
And
yeah.
lost a bit of that, when we're having like budget meetings and we've been doing house renovations and all this kind of stuff, it is turned into, but you're exactly right. That is very different than a relationship of chaos or gaslighting. Like you said, once in every 17 years, this is, I just said, hey, we just need a reset button. And that's all it is.
Yeah.
It
You're up.
doesn't, yeah, it's not a daily sense of despair,
That's right. That's
right?
right. And that's
Uh-huh.
important to have a partner who's sitting down with you and you're working through it together. You're choosing to work on it
Yes.
together. And he's been
Yes.
very much a part of that. And yes, we were both meditating with our triggers, both of us.
Yeah.
We
Mm-hmm.
were both getting still and saying, wait a minute, babe, I just got triggered here and I'm not doing a very good job. I can't respond to you appropriately. And saying, you know what, let's just go take a walk. Let's just get out in nature. Let's get this. Let's let's do something kind to each other here. We're just in it. We know we're in it. I love you. That's not changing. I'm not going
Right.
anywhere because we're working on it together. And instead of what we learned to do, instead of focusing so much on the triggers, we
Mm-hmm.
started paying attention to what set up the trigger to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
What
Agreed.
set that up so we could get the triggering down. Now I've got more resiliency. I've got more energy. I go
Yes.
sit down and I hold that part of me that was feeling unheard, which is one of my big
Yes.
issues, right? I'm holding what is unheard. I'm able to get to that 8-year-old girl that didn't feel heard. I'm able to get to the baby that was crying and left crying because that's what Dr. Spock taught parents to do back
Yeah, I
then. Or
remember.
I can get
Yeah.
to her and I can love
Mm-hmm.
on her enough that
Mm-hmm.
she's starting to calm down. But if I'm constantly triggered, I'm just
Mm-hmm.
in it.
Yeah.
And working on the triggers isn't enough. You've got to get your hand, to use your analogy, off the hot burner.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what we learned to do together was, wait a minute, how do we just pull back from this? How are we setting it up? Could we come up with a different environment together so we're not getting triggered so much? So we can do our deep spiritual work, so we can enjoy each other again the way that we love.
Yes, and that's the conversation. Ben's going to die if he listens to this right now. But the conversation is like, okay, we put a deadline because what you and I are both talking about is creating an action plan that involves responsibility on both people's parts.
That's right.
That's a healthy relationship, right? So in my situation, it was like, oh, we need to take care of all this, and I said, okay, when can we have it done? Because in my mind, I just need it. Both of us, we want it finished so that we can move on. Exactly what you said. Finish it, be responsible, like do all the things that we need to do, but then move on back into a lighter space of the relationship,
Mm-hmm.
right? But creating that action plan where both people have ownership and responsibility, not a blame pointing, well, if you hadn't done this, then I wouldn't have done. Like, those were not part of the conversations. And some people listening to this may be like, whoa, that's what it looks like. That's what a healthy relationship looks like.
That's right. That's right.
You
And that's
know?
coming out of my first relationship, Sarah, with my husband, where I was the one doing all and you gals all know what we're talking about here, all the fixing, all the mending, all I'm doing the inner
Uh-huh.
work, he's not, and we couldn't sustain it. And
Yeah.
and by the way, he to his credit, he really was a good man. He just didn't have the tools, and neither
Yeah.
did I. We were just playing out dysfunctional stuff. I didn't have the wherewithal to go to him and say, this is what I'm doing. What are you going to do?
Woo, woo, woo. Yes. Okay.
What's
This
your
is what
part
I'm going to doing. What are you going to do? Yeah. What's your part in this? Yeah. Yeah. Um, and with a male language, I don't want to too much of a stereotype, but with many men, it's like, this is what I feel like the problem is. How can we work together to solve the problem? That's a language that many men, they understand. Hate to be so stereotypical, but many men understand problems to solve versus emotions to process.
That's right. That's exactly right. Yep.
Yeah. So using that language
really makes a difference. And their end goal is the same.
Mm-hmm.
Our
Well,
end goal.
It's the same. Yeah. My favorite, the people who say the nicest things about me are the women who are going through my program who are in new relationships and they go like get in their emotional storms and their like boyfriends who are, healthy love me, right? Because they're like, oh, you went and talked to Sarah and you came back and you have this whole nother language to like discuss communication issues versus emotional storms, and only trying to put the fires out when the lightning bolts are still coming, because that's very normal. And sometimes as a female, especially if you've been through trauma, it can feel like an emotional storm.
Oh, yeah, it does. It does. And one of the gifts that I give to my women
Yeah.
is an ability to hold the emotional storm,
Mm-hmm,
hold
mm-hmm,
it so that it can calm down.
mm,
Because if we ignore it, it's just going to continue to be an issue, and we're just going to keep spinning in it. And it's not the easiest work to do in the world, but
mm-hmm,
it's the most rewarding work I've ever done. And this comes out of an ancient practice where women had some of the same issues, the
mm-hmm,
same ones, and they learned that their emotions were telling them things are off, things need to be better, and the work starts here.
mm,
And I have an unlimited capacity to love, and I have unlimited love at my access. I just need to get still enough to let it in.
mm.
And then we work through a process of letting yourself get filled from the inside out.
Which prevents you from throwing your emotional storm on safe people in your life,
That's right.
right? Because sometimes when it gets so big, we all find a safe person to, or it just gets so much that, I've heard people talk about, losing their temper with their kids or something. It just gets, the buildup is so big. So yes, it is work for yourself and it's self-responsibility and it's the right thing to do for the people in your life as well.
Absolutely. One of the ways I played it out was in what's known in business as triangulation. And I used to be a
Yes.
communications consultant. So basically, you target someone who is the head of the organization or a key position of influence, and you turn them into the bad guy or bad woman, and you project all of your unfinished business onto them, and you
Mm-hmm.
rally people around you over a legitimate cause to target them. And it can destroy businesses. It can destroy really good potential and possibilities,
Mm-hmm.
because all you're really playing out, all I was playing out was my projected unfinished business that I wasn't tending to. And I didn't know. And I could rally around a cause that other people could rally around as well. The cause was legitimate, by the way,
Mm-hmm.
but my way of dealing with it was very, very dysfunctional and very harmful. And I hurt people's lives in the process unnecessarily, I know now. So, in my practice, then that becomes an opportunity to do some very deep holding and compassionate work for the part of me that was still broken and still hurting and still aching and didn't know how,
Yeah. Yeah.
didn't know how to do it any differently.
Well, your work is so beautiful. Tell people where they can find out more about you and what you do.
Yeah, the best place to go is misahopkins.com. It's all happening over there. And
It's all happening over there. Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Misa. Any last words of wisdom, your parting wisdom to us?
oh, more than anything, what I want people to know, all people to know, is how precious they are. And that the great journey, as I know it in spiritual awakening, is really discovering how beautiful and precious you are. And when that's hard to hear or believe, that's the journey. Go find it, whatever that looks like for you. What does it mean to realize how just beautiful and special you really are? Because as you know that, your whole life changes. And and I want to thank you, Sarah, for the amazing work you are doing for so
Oh,
beautiful people out there. Thank you for being you and doing this work.
well, thank you. And as if you're on the early Sarah K. Ramsey journey, this is hello for me and Misa, not goodbye. We've already found several ways to collaborate, as I'm sure we will find many more. So thank you so much for coming and helping us become toxic person proof.
Hmm.